Mr. Altman, you are recognized for your opening statement. If you could turn on the volume.
Sorry about that.
And I do enjoy telling techies how to operate the tech.
Pretty embarrassing that I couldn't figure that out. Anyway, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Ranking Member Cantwell. Thank you all senators and fellow panelists. It's a real honor to be here. I was here about 2 years ago, and at that time, ChatGPT had recently launched. It was a curiosity in the world. People weren't sure what it was going to mean, what it was going to be used for. Today, we've made significant progress. ChatGPT is used by more than 500 million people a week. I just saw yesterday that, according to SimilarWeb, it's now the 5th biggest website on the internet globally, growing very quickly. But most of all, it's being used in really important ways. It's significantly increasing productivity. We hear scientists say they're 2 or 3 times more productive than they could be before. We hear people that are getting medical advice or learning in ways they couldn't before. And it's really, it's no longer this thing that was going to come in the future, but it's here now, and people are really using it. We're very proud to be one of the leaders of this. We're very proud that America is leading in AI so significantly. And I think that's critical. What Senator Cruz said about the importance of innovation in America, and that we have what happened with the internet, we have happen again. I believe this will be at least as big as the internet, maybe bigger. That needs to happen. For that to happen, investment in infrastructure is critical. I believe the next decade will be about abundant intelligence and abundant energy, making sure that America leads in both of those, that we are able to usher in these dual revolutions that will change the world we live in, I think in incredibly positive ways, is critical. I got to go to Abilene, Texas yesterday, where we're building out what will be the largest AI training facility in the world. It's coming along beautifully, super exciting to see. We need a lot more of that. There's a whole sort of AI factory, like a supply chain of energy chips, standing up data centers, building the racks and more. We've got to do that really well in the US so that we can continue to innovate, continue to lead, and continue to sort of shape this revolution. Speaking of that, I was very inspired by what Chairman Cruz said, so I'd like to deviate from script here and tell a story. In my prepared written testimony, I covered the basics. So if it's okay, I'd love to tell you a story. I grew up in St. Louis, and I was a computer nerd. And it was the time of the internet boom, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. We kind of lived in this beautiful old brick house in this suburb of St. Louis, and I lived in the attic, and I had this computer, and I would stay up all night, and I would learn to program, and I got to kind of use the internet, and it was like a crazy time of tons of innovation. All sorts of stuff was happening. It was amazing, and it was all happening here. All the internet companies were in the US. I used a Mac that was built here. I used chips that were started, near where I now live. And I learned about computers. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I can draw a straight line from that experience to founding OpenAI and getting to work on companies like Helion. The spirit of American innovation and supportive entrepreneurship. I don't think the internet could have happened anywhere else. And if that didn't happen, I don't think the AI revolution would have happened here. I am a child of the internet revolution. I have the great honor to be one of the parents of the many parents of the AI revolution. And I think it is no accident that that's happening in America again and again and again. But we need to make sure that we build our systems and that we set our policy in a way where that continues to happen. I think this is magic. I don't want to live in Europe either. I think America is just an incredible and special thing. And it will not only be the place where the AI revolution happens, but all the revolutions after. I was home visiting St. Louis recently, drove by our old house, and I kind of it was at night, and I looked up, and in that top floor window, the light was on, and I thought, hopefully there's some kid in there staying up late at night playing with ChatGPT, figuring out how he or she is going to start whatever company comes next, and whatever the next thing is after AI will happen here too. That is to me the magic of this country. It's incredibly personally important, and I hope it keeps going. Thank you very much for having me.
What are the 5 words you need to see from our government to make sure we win this AI race?
Allow supply chain sensible policy.
So how do we encourage innovators, investment to happen here in America to ensure we win this race? Mr. Altman, you want to start?
We were honored to announce back in January Project Stargate, a $500 billion investment in United States infrastructure. That is now well underway, as I mentioned, getting to see it yesterday in Abilene. The first site was incredible. We need a lot more of that. We need certainty on the ability to build out this entire supply chain, build the data centers, permit the electricity. We'd love to bring chip production here, network production here, server rack production here. And I think the world does want to invest. We have a lot of global investment flowing into the US to do this. We also want to make sure that other countries are able to build with our technology, use our models, and sort of like be in our orbit and you know, use US diffusion of technology here. So that's really important. We need to make sure that the highest skilled researchers that want to come work at US companies can come here and do that. We need to make sure that companies like OpenAI and others have legal clarity on how we're going to operate. Of course, there will be rules. Of course, there need to be some guardrails. This is a very impactful technology, but we need to be able to be competitive globally. We need to be able to train. We need to be able to understand how we're going to offer services and sort of where the rules of the road are going to be. So clarity there, and I think an approach like the internet, which did lead to flourishing of this country in a very big way, we need that again.
I'd like to continue that same theme generally about competitiveness. Do we need NIST to set standards? If you could just yes or no, just go down the line.
I don't think we need it. It can be helpful.
In the race for AI, who's winning, America or China? If the answer is America, how close is China to us? And what do we do to make sure the answer remains America will win? Mr. Altman, we'll start with you.
It is our belief that the American models, including some models from our company, OpenAI and Google and others, are the best models in the world. It's very hard to say how far ahead we are, but I would say not a huge amount of time. And I think to continue that leadership position and the influence that comes with that, and all of the incredible benefits of the world using American technology products and services, the things that my colleagues have spoken about here, the need to win in infrastructure, sensible regulation that does not slow us down, this sort of spirit of innovation and entrepreneurship that I think is a uniquely American thing in the world. None of this is rocket science. We just need to keep doing the things that have worked for so long and not make a silly mistake.
How harmful would it be to winning the race for AI if America goes down the road of the EU and creates a heavy-handed prior approval government regulatory process for AI?
I think that would be disastrous. To give a more specific answer to your previous question, which I think touches on why it would be so bad, there are three key inputs to these AI systems. There's compute, all the infrastructure we're talking about. There's algorithms that we all do research on, and there's data. If you don't have any one of those, you cannot succeed in making the best models. And as Brad said, the way for America to influence the world here is to have the technology that people most want to use and most adopt. The world uses iPhones and Google and Microsoft products, and that's wonderful. Like, that's how we have our influence. We don't want that to stop happening. So systems that stop us on any of these areas, you know, if we have rules about what data we can train on that are not competitive with the rest of the world, then things can fall apart. If we are not able to build the infrastructure, and particularly if we're not able to manufacture the chips in this country, the rules can fall apart. If we can't build the products that people want, that naturally win in the market, and I think people do want to use American products, we can make them the best. But if we're prevented from doing that, people will use a better product made from somebody else that doesn't have the sort of, you know, that is not stymied in the same way. So it is, I am nervous about standards being set too early. I'm totally fine, with the position some of my colleagues took, that standards, once the industry figures out what they should be, it's fine for them to be adopted by a government body and sort of made more official. But I believe the industry is moving quickly towards figuring out the right protocols and standards here, and we need the space to innovate and to move quickly.
Now, as I see it, the world has presented us with two paths. On one hand, the EU has chosen to regulate first and ask questions later. The GDPR is already limiting European access to the most capable AI models. On the other hand, China appears to be fast-tracking AI development, standing up large amounts of energy very quickly in an attempt to outcompete America. So I'd like to ask a few questions about how we can make sure we get the full benefit of this technology and accelerate its development. So first question, over the past year, we've seen many states, including California and Texas, consider their own AI frameworks, each one significantly burdensome in their own right. At the same time, our lead against China is shrinking to about only 6 months. So first of all, Mr. Altman, could you please sketch out what the world could look like if the U.S. were to have a patchwork regulatory framework and how that could impact our competitiveness?
I think it would be quite bad. I think it's very difficult to imagine us figuring out how to comply with 50 different sets of regulation. And in many of these states, there have been, dozens of different bills proposed that I understand several of which could be passed. That will slow us down at a time where I don't think it's in anyone's interest for us to slow down. One federal framework that is light touch, that we can understand and that lets us, move with the speed that this moment calls for seems important and fine. But the sort of every state takes a different approach here, I think would be quite burdensome and significantly impair our ability to do what we need to do, and hopefully you all want us to do too.
Do you agree with that, all of you? I'm just going to ask some quick questions, that this is a huge issue of national security, economic security relative to China, and we as America need to win in that regard. Very important. Everybody nodding their head. And then I know that it had been touched, but is the consensus among the witnesses that we are ahead right now, but is kind of tentative lead? What would be, very quickly, we'll start with you, Mr. Altman. What's your assessment on that? I know we've already talked about it. I just want to set the context for some of the questions.
Yeah, I believe we are leading the world right now. I believe we'll continue to do so. We want to make AI in the United States, and we want the whole world to get the benefit from that. I think that is the strongest thing for the United States. I think it's also the right thing to do for all the people of the world. And I really appreciate you all being with us here today, because I think we'll need your help, and everything you're saying, or almost everything you're saying, sounds great.
So as I ask this question, I'll ask if you guys think we're ahead, but then the key things when you say we need your help, what would, very succinctly, sometimes we're not so smart up here, what would the key things be that you would need from the U.S. government to help us maintain that lead and dominate this space, which is what I think we need to do? Mr. Altman, again, to you real quick on that.
We've talked a little bit about infrastructure, but I think we cannot overstate how important that is, and the ability to have that whole supply chain, or as much of it as possible, in the United States. The previous technological revolutions have also been about infrastructure and the supply chain, but AI is different in terms of the magnitude of resources that we need. So projects like Stargate that we're doing in the US, things like bringing chip manufacturing, certainly chip design to the US, permitting power quickly, like these are critical. If we don't get this right, I don't think anything else we do can help. On the model creation side, we've talked about the need for certainty on our ability to train and to have fair footing with the rest of the world to make sure we can remain competitive. The ability to offer products under a reasonable, fair, light touch regulatory framework where we can go win in the market, because the products will be so key to the sort of feedback loops and making them better and better, and the ability to deploy them quickly and win at the product level in addition to the model and infrastructure and data area is really quite important. The ability to bring the most talented people in the world here, the most talented researchers. We have a ton in the United States. There's more out in the world. We should try to get them all here, improving models here. I think those are some of the specifics.
How big a deal was DeepSeek? Is it a major, seismic, shocking development from China? Is it not that big a deal? Is it somewhere in between? And what's coming next? And let's, each of the four of you.
Not a huge deal. There are two things about DeepSeek. One is that they made a good open source model, and the other is that they made a consumer app that for the first time briefly surpassed ChatGPT as the most downloaded AI tool, maybe the most downloaded app overall. there are going to be a lot of good open source models, and clearly there are incredibly talented people working at DeepSeek doing great research. So I'd expect more great models to come. Hopefully also us and some of our colleagues will put out great models too. On the consumer app, I think if the DeepSeek consumer app looked like it was going to beat ChatGPT and our American colleagues' apps as sort of the default AI systems that people use, that would be bad. But that does not currently look to us like what's happening.
And there are a variety of views on what the rules should be concerning AI diffusion. NVIDIA has argued that we want American chips everywhere, even in China. Others have argued that we want to restrict at least the most advanced processors. I'm curious, each of the four of you, what do you think the rule should be, if anything, is to replace the AI diffusion rule? And Mr. Altman, we'll start with you.
I also was glad to see that rescinded. I agree there will need to be some constraints, but I think if the sort of mental model is winning diffusion instead of stopping diffusion, that directionally seems right. That doesn't mean there's no guardrails. It doesn't mean we say, like, we're going to go build a bigger data center in some other country than the US. Our intention is to build our biggest and best data centers in the US, do training in the US, build the models here, have our core research here. But then we do want to build inference centers with our partners around the world, and we've been working with the US government on that. I think that'll be good. To this point, that influence comes from people adopting US products and services up and down the stack, maybe most obviously if they're using ChatGPT versus DeepSeek, but also if they're using US chips and US data center technology and all of the amazing stuff Microsoft does. That's a win for us, and I think we should embrace that, but make sure that, you know, the most critical stuff, the creation of these models that will be so impactful, that should still happen here.
Would you support a 10-year learning period on states issuing comprehensive AI regulation or some form of federal preemption to create an even playing field for AI developers and deployers?
I'm not sure what a 10-year learning period means, but I think having one federal approach focused on light touch and an even playing field sounds great to me.
偷偷告诉大家，我最近发现了新法宝 Royal Face 逆时奇迹系列，它有活肤露、全效精华，还有精华霜。尤其我皮肤比较偏干，所以我非常的注重保湿。保湿做得好，肌肤自然烹润。提亮肤色更年轻，抚平皱纹超有感，而且气色变好。 用心保养，每天都更美一点。美吧。